Kobe Bryant was obsessed with greatness, but that same obsession almost prevented him from reaching the upper echelon of the NBA's greatest champions. In 2004, the Lakers had a disgustingly loaded roster. Kobe, Shaq, Gary Payton, Karl Malone. But despite all these future Hall of Famers, they couldn't win the title, losing in the finals to a Detroit team with far less talent. In part because Kobe still hadn't learned the hardest lesson of his career. Obsessive personal standards and individual success don't automatically translate into team leadership. What happened next is the most important leadership story of Kobe Bryant's career. And it's not about work ethic. It's about learning to make that work ethic elevate everyone around him. Welcome to the highest level. I'm Coach Evan, and I study what separates legendary leaders from everyone else. Today, we're breaking down Kobe Bryant's leadership evolution, how he went from a demanding individual who nobody wanted to follow to a peer leader who elevated entire teams through standards-based influence without formal authority. By the end of this case study, you'll understand the exact transition every executive faces, moving from individual excellence to collective leadership, and learning to influence high-performing peers without positional power. Let's dive in. First, let's understand what makes Kobe's leadership story so powerful for business leaders. This is not the typical "here's how to be great" case study. This is about the evolution that most leaders go through and most struggle with. Kobe's career breaks down into two distinct acts. Act 1, the foundation. Obsessive self-leadership that created individual excellence but team dysfunction. Early Kobe had legendary work ethic, uncompromising standards, and a demanding style that alienated teammates. Despite his individual brilliance, nobody wanted to follow him. Act 2 is the evolution, learning to translate personal excellence into peer influence. Later, Kobe maintained those same obsessive standards, but developed the emotional intelligence to elevate teammates. The same intensity, completely different approach and impact. This story of leadership transformation matters because Kobe's transition from Act 1 to Act 2 is exactly what you face as you move from individual contributor to team leader, from technical expert to people developer, from solo excellence to elevating the people around you. And here's what makes Kobe's story so honest and so relatable. He didn't start as a natural leader. He had to learn it. He struggled with it. He failed at it spectacularly in the 2004 playoffs and in the aftermath of a three-peat. And then he figured it out. The result, 5 championships. But most importantly, the last 2 using a leadership approach that raised the performance of everyone around him, from veterans to young players who became better just by being around him. This is the Kobe Bryant leadership model, not the myth of the Mamba Mentality as relentless individual obsession, but the reality of learning to use that obsession to elevate others. Principle 1, the Mamba Mentality, obsessive self-leadership. To understand his full evolution as a leader, let's start with what made Kobe individually great. The stories of his work ethic are legendary. On the night he was drafted by the Lakers, when most kids would party and celebrate the realization of a childhood dream, Kobe finished his interviews and went straight to the gym to work out. As he matured as a pro, so did his work ethic. While most NBA players work out twice a day in the offseason, Kobe worked out 4 times a day, with his first workout starting at 4 a.m. His reasoning? Quote, "Look how much more training I've done simply by starting at 4 a.m. As the years go on, the separation that you have with your competitors and your peers just grows larger and larger. By year 5 or 6, it doesn't matter what kind of work they're doing in the summer, they are never going to catch up because they're 5 years behind." Basically, Kobe's work ethic created an extra offseason of work every year because he was doing double the training that every other player was. Tim Grover, Kobe's personal trainer, described his professional approach. Always early, took punctuality extremely seriously, knew his playbook and his opponent's playbooks. Practice was always game speed, no time for bullshit, all work. This is the Mamba Mentality, obsessive self-leadership, uncompromising standards, relentless pursuit of perfection. This is important to understand for your leadership because personal mastery is the prerequisite for leadership influence. You can't lead others to excellence if you haven't mastered it yourself. You can't demand standards that you don't embody each and every day. The tactical takeaway. Before you can elevate others, you must master your craft so completely that your standards aren't theoretical, they're demonstrated daily through your own behavior. But here's the critical insight that most people miss about Kobe. This Mamba mentality made him a legend, but it didn't make him a leader. In fact, it almost prevented him from becoming one. The key takeaway: personal mastery is a prerequisite for leadership influence. Principle 2. The cost of isolation. Why solo excellence wasn't enough. This is where Kobe's story gets uncomfortable. And it's also where it becomes most valuable for executives facing the same challenge. Let's go to 2004. The Lakers assembled a super team. Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Gary Payton, Karl Malone, all future Hall of Famers. On paper, how could they not win the title? Instead, they got dominated in the finals by the Detroit Pistons, a team with far less individual talent. Derek Fisher explained it years later. If it was just about talent, we would have won the championship that year. But there has to be a willingness to believe. Older players, Payton and Malone in particular, were agitated by what they called Kobe's frequent ventures into the Kobe zone, where he tried to do everything himself. The problem wasn't talent, it was that nobody wanted to follow Kobe's lead. And then came the defining moment of Kobe's leadership education. Early in his career, after a game where Kobe got caught up in a one-on-one battle with Vince Carter, Phil Jackson talked to him about the qualities of leadership and his ability to be a leader. Kobe's response: "I'm ready to be a captain right now." Phil's reply changed everything. "But nobody is ready to follow you." This is such a powerful moment. At this point in time, Kobe had already won 3 championships, was averaging 30 points per game, and undoubtedly worked harder than anyone. But it took a great leader like Phil Jackson to look Kobe in the eye and tell him point blank that his teammates weren't ready to follow him. Why? Because demanding doesn't equal leading. Kobe later said, "The hardest thing for me to learn was that leadership isn't about demanding perfection, it's about inspiring it." One of Kobe's teammates later told him, "I just want to feel that as a teammate, you need me." Kobe didn't understand what he meant at first, but it wasn't about basketball skills. It was about the teammate's story, his journey, what validation meant to him as a person. Kobe was so focused on basketball perfection that he had missed the bigger game being played, the emotional needs and backstories that every teammate carries with them. The 2004 season was Phil Jackson's teaching moment. He let the dysfunction play out during the regular season, let Kobe operate in his demanding style, and the team collapsed in the finals. Phil used the entire season to prove a point. Talent plus obsession doesn't equal championship leadership. Within a week of that finals loss, Phil Jackson was gone. Within months, Shaq had been traded, and Kobe faced another harsh reality. His way hadn't worked. This story matters because every high performer faces this transition. You get promoted because of your individual excellence, your obsessive standards, and your ability to deliver results. Then you discover that what got you here won't get you there. The tactical takeaway: individual brilliance without connection creates friction, not followership. You can have the highest standards in the organization, but if people don't want to follow you, those standards mean nothing. This is what I see in organizations all the time. Technically brilliant leaders who can't understand why their teams won't execute at the level they know is possible. And it's because they're still in Act 1 of their leadership journey. Kobe was about to enter Act 2. The key takeaway: demanding does not equal leading. Connection and standards create followership. And this is where the story pivots. Kobe tried it his way for a year and a half without Phil Jackson. The Lakers struggled. Kobe was incredible, averaging 35 points a game, but the team wasn't even close to competing for championships. And Kobe learned something crucial. His greatest competition wasn't other teams, it was his own ego and his approach to leadership. The turning point came when Phil Jackson returned in 2005 on his terms, and Kobe was finally ready to learn. Principle 3: from demanding to teaching. Phil Jackson came back to the Lakers in 2005. This time, Kobe was more compliant. He had tried it his way and failed. He was ready to learn. Jackson gave Kobe a year of indulgence, let him shoot at will, average 35 points a game, because the team wasn't really ready to contend anyway. But when Derek Fisher returned, and Andrew Bynum improved, and Paul Gasol arrived, Jackson changed the rules, and Kobe changed his approach. Look at Game 5 of the 2009 Finals against Orlando. The Lakers won the championship that night. But in the second quarter, the quarter that decided the game, the Lakers outscored Orlando 30-18. How many points did Kobe score in that decisive quarter? 4. But if you paid close attention, here's what you would have noticed about that quarter of play. Kobe's imprint was all over the turnaround. He was setting up his teammates, driving them, encouraging them to seize the opportunity. Everyone on the court looked like a star. This is the shift from demanding to teaching. Same standards, completely different delivery. Years later, Phil Jackson reflected on Kobe's growth. In those 8 years, he learned to become a leader in a way in which people wanted to follow him. He knew that he had to give to get back in return. So he became a giver rather than just a guy that's a demanding leader. A giver, not just a demander. That's the evolution. When young players asked Kobe for advice, he was gracious but honest. He'd tell them that when you shake the commissioner's hand on draft night, your career is over. A lot of guys think that they've made it, a huge sigh of relief. But the real question is, what's next? Are you going to do the work, or did you just arrive? He wasn't softening his standards. He was making them accessible, making them something others could aspire to rather than feel intimidated by. This is so important for your leadership because peer leadership requires demonstration plus translation, not just expectation. You can't just tell people, work like I work or care like I care. You have to show them why it matters, connect it to their journey, and make the path visible. The tactical takeaway: make excellence accessible and aspirational, not intimidating. Teach the process, not just the outcome. Give people the tools to build their own obsession rather than trying to impose yours. This is exactly what I see missing in organizations. Leaders who know what needs to be done, but can't translate that knowledge into action that others can follow. Kobe learned that translation is where leadership actually happens. The key takeaway: demonstration plus translation is greater than expectation alone. Principle 4, adapting intensity for connection. Here's where Kobe's evolution gets really sophisticated. He didn't lower his standards, he didn't become soft, he maintained the same intensity, but he learned to calibrate it for connection. Years later, Kobe reflected on that moment when a teammate told him, "I want to feel you need me." That really opened my eyes that there's a bigger game being played. It's not just basketball. It's the emotions of each individual and the backstory that they're carrying with them. And if I really wanted to be a champion and a great teammate, I have to understand what those mean to help them become better, and in the end, help me. This is just an incredible display of emotional intelligence in action. Not just understanding your own drive, but understanding what drives each person around you. Kobe applied the same empathy to better understand how his leadership approach worked with different teammates. Some needed to be pushed hard. Others needed to be encouraged. Some needed detailed instruction. Others needed space to figure things out. Kobe developed what I call calibrated intensity, maintaining uncompromising standards while adjusting the delivery based on what each person needed to reach those standards. Same intensity, evolved approach. Influence without authority requires emotional intelligence plus calibration. As a leader, it's crucial to understand that you can have the same high standards for everyone, but the path to meeting those standards looks different for each person. Some people respond to direct challenge. Others need support first, then challenge. Some need autonomy. Others need structure. The tactical takeaway: connect without compromising standards. Emotional intelligence allows you to tailor your leadership as you learn what each person on your team needs emotionally to reach the standards you're setting. Same destination, customized journey. Kobe learned that these aren't opposites, they're complementary. The key takeaway: same standards, customized delivery leads to peer influence. Principle 5, Legacy through elevation. This is where Kobe's leadership evolution reaches its final form. And it's where his story becomes most powerful for executives thinking about legacy. This became his post-career focus, the Detail series where he broke down game film to teach the next generation. Granity Studios created stories to inspire. When coaching young players, Kobe would tell them that it had to be their personal quest to get better. There's no pressure from him. It's their process to own. He had knowledge to pass on, but ultimately it was about them. This is the highest form of leadership, making yourself less necessary by making others more capable. Years later, when Kobe was told that Dear Basketball was too niche, that sports stories didn't connect broadly, he proved them wrong. The film won an Oscar because, as he said, you don't have to watch basketball to connect to the journey of a dream. This matters for all leaders because true leadership legacy is measured by who you elevate, not what you achieve. Yes, Kobe has 5 championships. Yes, he's one of the greatest players ever. But his real legacy is the players that he made better, the young executives he mentored after retirement, the stories he created to inspire others. The tactical takeaway: what you keep, you lose. What you give will grow. Shift your focus from how do I achieve more to how do I help others achieve what they couldn't without me. That's when demanding leadership becomes elevating leadership. This is what I see in the best executives. At some point in their career, they realize that their impact multiplies through the people they develop, not through their personal achievements. Kobe reached this realization, and it made him more valuable as a leader than he ever had been as an individual performer. The key takeaway: leadership legacy is about who you elevate, not what you achieve. Now here's how all these principles work together in practice. Look at the Lakers' 2009 and 2010 championship runs. This is Kobe's leadership evolution firing on all cylinders. You had obsessive self-leadership. Kobe still trained at 4 a.m. He still studied film to the microsecond. He still maintained uncompromising personal standards. The foundation never changed. He just built on top of it. You had connection over isolation. Teammates wanted to follow him now. Phil Jackson set up the system, but Kobe bought in completely. No more Kobe zone. He was running the triangle offense, trusting the system, making everyone around him better. You had teaching, not demanding. In that decisive Game 5 of the 2009 finals, Kobe scored only 4 points in the second quarter, but his leadership imprint was everywhere. He was teaching in real time, setting up teammates, and creating opportunities for others. You had calibrated intensity. Different teammates got different approaches. Paul Gasol needed encouragement and strategic guidance. Trevor Ariza needed to feel trusted. Lamar Odom needed freedom within structure. Kobe used his emotional intelligence to adapt his leadership approach to each teammate while maintaining the same standards for all. And you had elevation as purpose. Everyone on the court looked like a star when they played with Kobe. Not because he was passing more, he was still Kobe, but because he'd learned to make his obsession contagious rather than isolating. Notice the sequence. The foundation of personal mastery created credibility. The connection work created followership. The teaching approach created capability. The calibrated intensity created buy-in, and the elevation mindset created legacy. This is the difference between Act 1 Kobe and Act 2 Kobe. Same person, same work ethic, same standards, completely different impact on others. To implement this model in your organization, master your craft first. Build genuine connections with your team. Teach the process, not just demand results. Calibrate your approach to each person and measure success by who you elevate, not just by what you achieve. The evolution Kobe went through from 2004 to 2010 is the same evolution every executive goes through, from individual contributor to peer leader to developer of others. So there you have it. Kobe Bryant's leadership model, broken down into 5 evolution principles. Obsessive self-leadership as foundation, understanding the cost of isolation, shifting from demanding to teaching, adapting intensity for connection, and legacy through elevation. The bottom line, Kobe's real legacy isn't the work ethic. Thousands of athletes work obsessively. His legacy is learning to translate that obsession into peer influence, elevating everyone around him without sacrificing his standards. That's championship leadership. If you found this valuable, subscribe for more championship leadership case studies. Next week, we're breaking down Jose Mourinho and how his psychological warfare and instant impact created championship cultures. And if you're a business leader navigating the transition from individual excellence to peer leadership, check out the link in the description. I work with executives who want to develop the influence to elevate their teams without formal authority. Until next time, lead like a legend.